Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Kyra and today we are diving into the art of makeup. Missed it, I did introduce a new series on my channel called The Art of Makeup Color Made Easy. And more than a series, this is going to be a focus on my channel. I want to bring all of the knowledge that I've been collecting for the last couple of years here on the BeauTube and bring it to you in a way that is easy to understand, that's concise, and that is helpful to you. So I thought it would be appropriate before we dive into eyeshadow or anything like that to talk about the brushes that are helpful. I don't want to say the brushes you need, but I want to say the brushes that we're going to be using in this series, the types of brushes, not specific brushes. That being said, I do have an affiliate code with Bdellium tools, and I will have that down in the description box below for you. I don't normally do this, but I have it. And because I'm going to be using a lot of Bdellium tool brushes in these videos because they're my favorite, and I'll be showing some today, I just want to put those down below along with the list of the brushes that I talk about today. And so with all that said, let's get into it before this video gets to be an eon long, like most of my videos. All right, first we're going to talk about the big fluffy, as I like to call it. Now there's a couple types of big fluffy brushes. For me, there's a flat top brush and a pointed fluffy brush. And the regular, more flat top brushes, as you'll see here, these are more meant for diffusing shadow or applying shadow in the most diffused manner. Because the bristles are light and fluffy and they have a lot of give and movement to them, these are ideal either for putting in your transition shade or for blending out your transition shade or blending out just the edges of your look for a more diffused look. And by diffused, I mean less pigment. The second type of big fluffy or just fluffy brush in general that I want to talk about are pointed fluffy brushes. Hopefully you can see that each of these three brushes in the three different sizes have more of a pointed shape on the top. This one's a little wonky because I use it a lot. All three of these are Bdellium tools, and also this is sort of the gradient of brushes that I like to use for building up a crease before going in with other shadows. The more pointy the brush, the more direct application you're going to get. You're going to be able to get in that crease of yours, especially if you have hooded eyes. This is going to get into that crease for you, and because there is a point to it, there will be a little bit more targeted pigment on the eye, but still going to have that more diffused wash of color than some of the other brushes we're going to be looking at. But next I want to talk about the smaller the brush and also the pointier the brush, the more targeted and detailed application you're going to get. Here are some smaller brushes. I'll hold them down here. Hopefully you can see them better. I have a couple of, again, more fluffy blending brushes. And you can see here, again, we have a flat top brush right here. We have a more pointy targeted crease brush. And then we'd have just this smaller, flatter, diffusing brush. Wow. And these types of brushes I really highly recommend, specifically these two, both of which are from Morphe. I really recommend smaller brushes the more hooded your eyes are. I do have hooded eyes, however, I do have a lot of lid space, which to me, I think makes things a little bit easier for my hooded eyes, but I still find that the smaller the brush, the better control I have over how I'm applying it. These have the same function as the big fluffy. These are just smaller, and the reason smaller is helpful is because you're not going to bring up the shadow as high. No matter how much you bend and swirl this brush in your crease, it's not going to work its way up unless you intentionally let it do that. And then the other type of more targeted crease brushes are these very pointy brushes. I used this one today and it is very pointy. It comes to a point. It has a little bit less give than a fluffy brush. And again, this is going to help keep your darker shades, if you wish, lower in your crease and closer to your lid versus continuing to migrate up as it would if you use a big fluffy or a big pointed brush. And then this is more like a pencil brush, but I also like these for outer corner detail work, whether it be in the crease, on the outer part of the lid, or even the outer part of the lower lash line. And then, as I briefly mentioned when I was talking about this small fluffy in the first category, the more dense the bristles, meaning the less give, the more bristles that are in the metal part here called the ferrule, the more pigment that these brushes are going to pick up and therefore deposit on your eye. So these can be really helpful for me. Sometimes when I'm working with deeper colors or certain deeper colors that have a tendency to maybe get patchy as I'm blending them out or just get out of control, I will pack on that darker color first in, on the outer lid, in my crease, and then just lightly buff with this brush or go in with a bigger, fluffier brush to diffuse those edges. We're gonna go over all of these eyeshadow techniques that I'm talking about, so don't feel bad if you're a little lost or having questions. I just wanted to give you an idea about the tools you're working with before we work with them. So, and then you can see here that I have a variety of sizes. You can see here when I'm pushing down on the bristles of these brushes, they don't have the give that a fluffy does. Does that make sense? So again, these brushes are what you want for a more targeted, more opaque application of eyeshadow. And there's a whole bunch of them here ranging in price. Again, this is a Jessup brush from Amazon. I will link the set of Jessup brushes that I purchased, but also I have these two brushes here in two different sizes from e.l.f. These were $1 a piece and I really like these. They're of decent quality and they work the same as any other brush. All right, next let's talk about flat eyeshadow brushes, or sometimes they're called flat shader brushes. These are the type of brushes that you're looking for when you're wanting to spread an eyeshadow specifically on the lid, though you can use them in other ways. And they're very, very flat. They're usually rounded at the top here, but then as you turn them all to the side, allegedly, they're very thin. They're pinched at the ferrule and the bristles lay flat like a paddle. And so these are for spreading eyeshadow. Now for me, the thinner the flat shader brush, the more I'm likely to use it for a shimmer. And the thicker, these again are flat eyeshadow brushes. As you turn them to the side, they do get flatter, but you can see here versus like this Morphe brush, there's a lot thicker, denser bristles, even though this is still flat. And I find that these are ideal if you're looking to spread matte shadows on your lid, because then you're picking up a good amount of pigment and laying it down. If you're working with more of a flat synthetic brush like this, or like this one here from Bdellium, they will work, but it will take a lot longer and it will be a lot fussier to lay down those matte shadows on the lid and spread them evenly and whatnot on the lid. So those are your flat brushes. What I almost forgot, I love a flat brush for an inner corner highlight. However, ideally it needs to be pretty small. So this is one that I really like for that inner corner highlight. Again, this one's from Jessup, from that little set that I bought. and I actually love this because I don't think I have another one quite like this in my collection of brushes here. I have a new cup for my brushes. I picked this up on New Year's Eve, and it says, actually, I can. And I can. We all can. So, last category of brushes are going to be like detailed brushes. This little flat one that I just talked about from Jessup, yes, it could be considered a detail brush, but what I'm talking about is little brushes where I can get just the teeniest, tiniest amount of black on the outer part of the lid or on the lower lash line. I also like these just in general for smudging shadow on the lower lash line. Again, these work great for inner corner work if you're highlighting that inner corner. These can do a lot of different functions, and they're pretty much all the same in that they have dense bristles, which means they don't have a lot of give. They're not going to do a lot of blending. They're just going to be placing the shadow. Some are more pointed than others, which can be ideal, again, for doing the lower lash line or really targeting your inner corner highlight. And then like this one here from Sonia Kashuk, I love this small domed brush, dense domed brush. You can see the one next to it. This is a pencil brush because it's pointed like a pencil. And this one's more dense and domed. And I love, love, love this brush, like I said, for just putting the tiniest bit of depth on that very outer V of the lid, and even carrying it down to the outer third of the lower lash line. All right, couple of special categories of brushes here that I wanted to mention. There's a type of brush, in my belief, that you can do an entire eyeshadow look, which, you know, a lot of us have more than one brush, but also this type of brush can make your eyeshadow look boom, super duper quick. But what I'm talking about here, kind of, each brand has its infamous brush number in this style, but it's a fluffy brush that is pinched at the ferrule, meaning this ferrule is squeezed tight at the base of the bristles here, and then it's fluffy on the outer part. So some that you might be familiar with, this is the short handle, but this is the MAC 217. Also have the Morphe M167 that is the same. Here's a very inexpensive e.l.f. one, which is just called their blending brush. Again, these are $1. They work just as well as any of the rest of these, and the rest will be listed below. The thing that's great about these is, number one, let's say you're doing your transition. You can turn it on its side like this, and you're going to be able, it's going to perform like a big fluffy because of the way that it's turned on the eye here. You're going to get that nice diffused color that you're looking for in a transition, allegedly. But then you can turn it back so it's more pinched and targeted. Get in there and do your crease shade. Using just the very tip of the brush, you can definitely pack on a little bit of depth on the outer part of the lid, and also
blending out. I just put myself in the eye. I knew it was gonna happen.
And you can also use this to buff out a lower lash line. But the other thing that's cool about this brush is using the flat surface of the paddle shape of the brush, you can spread your eyeshadow just like you would with a flat shader brush. So I'm not kidding when I say you literally can do an entire eye look with this type of brush. And again, if you want to see me do that in a video soon, let me know. I'd be happy to do it. Any type of brush that looks like this is going to be a beautiful tool to have in your arsenal if you're in a hurry or if you don't want to buy a lot of brushes. And then the last type of brush that I want to talk about is what I like to call the magic eraser of brushes. You know what I'm talking about when I say a magic eraser, the little Mr. Clean, the white looking sponge thing that literally erases things that you thought were on your walls forever, maybe. But what I am talking about is bigger, denser, brushes. This is one from Flower Beauty, again one from Bdellium, another one from Sonia Kashuk. If you want luxury feeling brushes at a lower end, I'm not going to say drugstore prices, but they're definitely not high-end prices for individual brushes, I highly recommend checking out the Sonia Kashuk brushes at Target. They're beautiful and they will last you forever. Getting back to the magic eraser, let's say I've gone down too far. Even let's demonstrate, shall we? All right, so on the side of my eye here, you can see I have a little bit of dark shadow that's come down too far. Take your magic eraser, this is the one from Flower Beauty, go in with a bone or skin colored shadow. I'm going to use bone, like a bone colored shadow for the purposes of this demonstration. And what you do is come down below your lower lash line and pull up. And I think it really helps. I mean, you can see how it's like almost winged out. So you can use this to correct little mistakes, as well as using this on the edge of your eyeshadow will just soften it so much. If you've gone up too high, you can again take some bone eyeshadow, start at your brow and work your way down, and it's going to start diffusing that shadow. And again, if you want a video on magic eraser brushes and how you can use them, then I'd be happy to film that for you as well. But these are definitely a must-have in my collection, and again, you can purchase these at any price point. So that's that. How to hold your brushes. So let's look at a brush, okay? Ferrule ends here, and then you have the end of the brush. The farther down the brush you hold, the less pressure you're going to have on your eye and the shadow, and the more diffuse and soft the look is going to become. So if you're holding your brush all the way down here, which is exactly what I do when I'm working in a transition shade or just blending out the edges of my shadow, I like to hold them all the way out here, and it's the least amount of pressure. The further in you hold your brush, the more pressure that's going to be allowed to be put on these bristles, and you're going to have less control over where that shadow goes, whether it's diffused or whatnot. Sometimes you're going to end up with patchy shadow the further in that you hold your brush. The only time I hold brushes further in like this is a flat eyeshadow brush. When I'm pressing or swiping or just spreading eyeshadow on the lid, I do tend to hold it closer to the ferrule because I want more control. I want more control about the placement of that eyeshadow, whereas if I was blending, I'd be holding it out here. So hopefully that makes sense. We'll continue to talk about that as we go through the series. So that is it. That is all I have to say about brushes today. Hopefully this video doesn't end up too long in the editing process, but if it does, know that this is really going to help you if you're struggling to learn how to apply eyeshadow. Knowing your tools means going forward into applying your eyeshadow with more confidence, and that's what I'm here for. So let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions about any of this. I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. If not, in the comments in a future video. The next video, we're going to be talking about picking our eyeshadows for an eyeshadow look. I'm going to be using the e.l.f. The New Classics in case you're curious. This has a lot of mattes and a gradient and a variety of colors and tones, so just know that if you're keen to follow along with the series, that's a palette I'm going to be using a lot. Another palette you could use would be the Tarte Clay Play either volume or any other palette that has a gradient from light to dark of matte shadows. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's all clear as mud, and I hope all of your makeup days are absolutely beautiful makeup days, and I will see you in my next video. real soon.